Welcome back everyone to Scavenging with Pineleaf, a series of tales, travels, and trifles. And today we are going to be looking for remembrances on various battlefields. And in this case, we're heading into the Dead Marshes, which is a real nasty place if you've ever seen one. Full of spirits and all that nasty stuff from the ones who were killed here in that great battle. There are two versions of the Dead Marshes in the game. You have the side that is connected to the waste, which is the part that is in the most recent update. That's not the part we're in right now. We're in the part we went into before the wastes were released. Uh-oh. Hey, let me finish. I said, let me finish remembering. You are rude. Rude. Capital R. Now you're dead. Dead. With a capital D. Now, where was I doing? Oh, yes. And this is the place you go to remember and think about what Frodo was up to when you are in Dol Amroth and you wind up going into the Cave of the Avarim and come down here. And the real trick here is being able to navigate this area because it's really, really nasty. And I'm not exactly joyous in coming back here, I have to tell you that. This is the closest thing there is to a pleasant place in the Dead Marshes. I mean, we've got flowers here, we've got rocks, no water. Yeah, we do have fell spirits wandering around here, but compared to some of the other places in the Dead Marshes, it's simply cheery. Yeah. Now, with that, I think it's time to get out of here. You know you're in an unpleasant location when Fornost looks like a nice, sweet spot in comparison. And this particular character hasn't done much here, but this place does have a few memories. Now, the first time I came into this region, this is, I believe, before the treasure hunter camp existed here, you would sometimes come around here in order to take care of the quest to fight against some of the animals out there. They were at least signature, maybe even elites. So we have to go and find some of them up down into this area, into the main area of Fornost. And Fornost was originally a outside area that went with an instance, because originally when you wanted to go into an instance, of course, you had to fight your way all the way to get to the entrance. So you had all these bears and aurochs and pigs that you had to fight in order to get through there. The pigs weren't too much trouble. I think the aurochs, they tended to be elites back in those days, back before they made it a soloable area. But you had to fight your way to the entrance of the dungeon. You couldn't just use an instance panel in order to go there. So things were a little bit tougher back then. And Fornost was one big dungeon. That was back when big, huge, sprawling dungeons were still the norm. So you had to go through all four wings of the dungeon in order to complete it. Though it might be possible that there were locks perhaps on some. I don't know if they had locks on the various wings so that you could split the session or not. But in any case, you wanted a group that would be dedicated for several hours in order to do Fornost. course, these days you've got the instance panel in order to help you. And you also can go into each of the wings individually. You do the dungeon by going into one of the wings, then you go into a second wing, or you might even split along several sessions. For example, when we did Fornost on the field trip, I think we might have done one wing per week or something like that, which is possible these days, unlike was back in the past. Now, what about this place as a battlefield, since that's ostensibly the reason why we're coming here? To remember its use as a battlefield, this was one of the major battles during the Third Age, where we defeated the forces of Angmar. Of course, well, that certainly wasn't a final victory, but it did help things for a while. Though, you can see that we didn't exactly have anything great come out of it, because, yes, Angmar fell, but it wasn't too long after that we also had the end of the Northern Kingdom. So, yeah, things didn't come out for anyone on that particular battle well. And there's even a quest in there where you find the remains of some hobbits that were also part of the battle. So therefore everyone took place at that battle, and many of them died. And speaking of hobbits, let's go to a battlefield that looks a lot more pleasant and a lot more hobbity. We are here in Brocking-Borings, looking at the statue of Bull Roarer, lopping off the head of Golfimble and inventing the game of golf at the same time. And that's because we are to study the Battle of the Greenfields, which is one of the major battles that's fought within the Shire. And the other one, of course, being Bywater, which hasn't been fought yet at the time of the game. And of course, we come down here in order to find the tooth way back from the days of the battle against Golfimble. So we find a rabbit hole and pull out a tooth, and that sets off a chain of actions, which leads to the goblins that have infested the area. Ah, here's another one up here. This might be close to one of the rabbit holes. There we go. So yes, remembering the time, the Bull Roarer leading the hobbits against the goblins. And of course, the theme for the time we spend here in the game is, of course, the goblins coming back down for a little bit of revenge. Now, I don't know if this is a place of the battle, but this is a place we come to with the ranger. Nope. Well then, that's the Greenfields. Let's see where our next stop is. Oh yes, that fun little place called Osgiliath. Whee! We go from a nice, pleasant location with a long forgotten battle, except by a statue and the occasional game of golf, to one pretty recent, because the Battle of Osgiliath happens during the time of the game. Actually, there are probably a long number of battles within Osgiliath, taking it, then the other, then exchanging it back and forth. But of course, we come into the game at a point where Osgiliath is once again contested. And I have some really nasty memories of it for the first point in Osgiliath. Fortunately, I am able to at least get some of these remembrances from after Battle of Osgiliath, because I'm not too sure I would have enjoyed going into the main section of Osgiliath and fighting orcs and trolls in it, because many of the remembrances are here on the Great Bridge, and having to fight trolls in order to get across here is, yeah, not the most pleasant thing I can think of. But anyway, Osgiliath is definitely not a pleasant place to remember, simply because of all those orcs you've got to fight while you're going along in here. So therefore, let's hop around again and head to the Fords of Ison. The Fords of Ison is the first of the battles we've been looking at, where we were actually significant participants. Yes, we were in some small way entering into the big battle of Osgiliath, but let's face it, that was one of those big, long-out battles that takes several days, several people dying and all that stuff. Well, this one was fought over a single day, with the final parts being, of course, here at Ison itself, where Theodred falls. Now, we're here at the point before the battle, with the Rohirrim here holding on to the ford, getting ready to protect it. And the place looks very, very, very different after the battle. So we can have a quick look at that after I find this last remembrance. And that is right there. It's a place where we help to train these soldiers, getting ready for the battle. I hope he doesn't hit me when we're doing that. Good. And recollect battles of bygone days. Well, in this case, I'm not too sure calling that bygone days is very accurate, but alright. But now to get onto this side, because we use this little thing here in order to get to the other side of the battle. Before we saw the ford prior to the first Battle of Ison, this is the ford after the second Battle of Ison. So you can see the place is, yeah, gotten really nasty as a result of that. And you know it's a really nasty battle when you got fires all over the place at a river. Okay, this is perhaps right, yeah, we're on the islet still, right? Yes, we are on a small island in the middle of a river, and the place is just burning all over the place. And yeah, you can pick up remembrances here also. Now, after this pleasant location, we'll go to the next side of the battle in the War of the Rohan, where we definitely participated, and that's in that real fun place, Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep was the site of two battles, one of them in the long past, which is what gave it the name Helm's Deep, and then the other, of course, we participate in. Oh boy, do we participate in it. And in fact, that became a little bit of a point in the Legolas section a couple of days ago, when we participated in the battle to kill 41 orcs, which is one of the incidents at Helm's Deep. So therefore, the entire plot of the Helm's Deep expansion, even the expansion is named after Helm's Deep, of course, all centered around on this battle. So here, we're not remembering things of old, days of old, or anything like that, but we're remembering our experiences as we fought here and cried because we were doing epic battles. Oh yes, I know what we need to do. We need to head up onto the wall, up this way, to pick up the final few ones. Of course, this is Helm's Deep before the battle. I'm sure it is in a lot worse shape after the battle, simply because the orcs weren't particularly kind to it, with all of those boulders they were lobbing at it from the catapults, as you saw in the previous episode, assuming I bothered to show that part. Well, that is Helm's Deep. Let us then head into our next battle, which is what we did following Helm's Deep, and that was to go to Non-Corneer. In other words, the places near Isengard. I was trying to figure out what the pattern is for the order in which they show these various battles, and I'm guessing that it's in the battle in which they were fought, meaning that the one that was most distant and past was, of course, the Battle of... oh yes, the one in the Dead Marshes, because that went all the way back down to the Wayne Riders. Then we had the battle down in the... yeah, I'm forgetting which battle is which now. Whee! Yes, then Fornost. Then we had each of the other battles in the order they were fought. That meant then when they were thinking of Remembrances of Osgiliath, obviously it wasn't the one that we were in, because that would have been fought earlier. The version that we were in was, of course, would have been fought after Helm's Deep, but the Battle of Osgiliath was actually months long with various components at various times, with Boromir involved and the like before he was going through there. So yes, Osgiliath was just one big battleground for months, and I think it was a mistake to come to flooded Isengard for this, because the original version of Isengard was a lot easier to navigate and find these remembrances, which is what I did on my other characters, and now I see why. Now, the Isengard battle here was around the same time as the Battle of Helm's Deep. The exact timing of it is I'd say hours within each other. So therefore, you could see here that the time, which one to put first is another matter. I think they decided to put Isengard afterwards, because you see the results of Isengard after you see the results of the Battle of Helm's Deep. So therefore, I will find the rest of these remembrances and then head off to the next battle. And here we are in Pella, next to the statue of Thorngil. But of course, one of the main things to know to Pella is this is where we fought that epic battle that I wasn't particularly fond of. Nope, not at all. Though I must admit, the epic battle in Pella isn't the only one that I find less than exciting. In fact, I'm not one of those fans of epic battles, so therefore I'm just happy that there aren't too many more of those around. Now, the instance after the epic battle also can be brutal at times. You have to be careful what you're doing when you have that boss fight near the end and when you're trying to free up those slaves. And of course, there are various other quests here involved with these docks here after you free up the city. Which I think this is the ship where you free the slaves and take care of everyone there at the end of it, and where I think on more than one of my characters I have found myself on a quick trip to a red circle. Now let me find the rest of these for Pella, and then we could go to the last of the battlefields, the most recent one in the timeline of the Lord of the Rings, and that is the Battle of Pelennor. Well, let's go. At least they didn't think of using the Battle of the Black Gate, which would really be the most recent one, considering that, well, I don't think we've quite finished that one yet. And here we are at Pelennor Fields after the battle. I figure it's better to look at them after the battle since we're remembering the battle. It's hard to remember a battle if you're in the area before it took place. So I think you can collect some of the remembrances there also if you were so inclined. Now let's see if I can find 6 remembrances all over the place. Now of course, Aragorn's Pavilion, that's mainly, in my opinion, a remembrance of what happens after the battle. But I'm wondering about this monument here. Yeah, there has to be a remembrance here because this is where Theoden fell. But I must say, they erected this pretty quickly. Ah, they put it twice. Once in the Rohirrim language and once in the Gondorian language. And of course, the Gondorian language would be written in an Elvish script, while the Rohirrim language would be written in runes. There you go. That's 2 of them down. So there should be other places in this battle that were memorable. Of course, one of the more memorable places will be at the front gate where Grond busted through. I see up here we have the banners of Rohan, of Dol Amroth, and of course of, I presume that is the steward's banner, or is it just the banner of Gondor? I'm not exactly sure. It's not quite the king's banner because it doesn't have the 7 stars on it, and that would be intentional, of course, because Aragorn did not allow that banner to be flown at this point. Ah, and there might even be a better view from back here. There we are. And that is our final remembrance of a battlefield. Yay! Now next time we have to worry about trifles, and these trifles are going to be real tough ones. So I don't know how many of them I'm actually going to be able to do because they're all going to involve raids, and you know, I am not exactly a top raider. How am I going to get around this? We'll find that out in the next episode of Scavenging with Pineleaf, a series of tales, travels, and trifles.